Okay, and welcome to day two of this Night in the Woods retrospective. Kind of hold off at the beginning because, yeah, you hear the sleeping music all the time, but most of the time I'm just immediately, hit the button and cut it off. But, yeah, it's kind of a nice ethereal little soundtrack there. So, yeah, at this point you can see that you've got access to your bass guitar in your bedroom, which was really nice. It wasn't available for some reason during the initial launch, which kind of felt weird because, you had a bass guitar right there. Yeah, in this little landing area, you get a lot of opportunities to check out stuff and kind of get through, what's going on in May's head, which typically isn't the most prevalent. Usually it's just her kind of waxing nostalgia, which is kind of nice. And here we get to find out more about May's family, not through just, normal exposition, but rather May, checking out the books in the bookshelf. You find out that May's dad is big into bird watching. Never comes up ever again. But it's good little bits of information. Mom's books, though, we find out a lot about what Candy Borowski likes to read, because she is a reader, and pretty much every time we see her, she's got a book in her hands, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I like the character of Candy Borowski. She's very realistically portrayed as a mother who is concerned, but isn't immediately going to, jump down May's throat to be like, what happened? It's kind of nice seeing characters, grow and develop and all that kind of stuff. What is interesting, though, is how, how their relationship kind of plays out. Like I said, this is going to be full of spoilers, so if you haven't played the game, or if you haven't watched any of the Let's Plays, this would be, a bad time, but, the times when, May and her mom fight are, some of the most heart-wrenching parts of this game, because it's you want these characters to like each other, because not because they say Candy is May's mom, because, that's just exposition, but the way the two, play off of each other, you actually see this whole sense of camaraderie together. And, and of course the eventual sort of tagline or catchphrase for Candy Borowski: eels, honey, eels. And the game is broken up into parts, although they are really freaking arbitrary on what parts go where. Here something I rarely did during my regular Let's Plays was jump up in front of, or on top of the pole outside of May's household, because to me it was just never something important, but I realized later, it's oh yeah, you get a lot of dialogue there. Mr. Twigmayer, who, serves very little purpose, but he he shows up near the end of the game, which while you think, nothing of it, it's a concerned neighbor and the like, but he's really, really, really concerned with what May knows, which, since the events of that point are the May fleeing from the death cult, makes me now wonder if Mr. Twigmeyer is a member of that cult, because you never get to actually, confirm anyone who is a member of it. In fact, there's a lot of people who I've got theories of. It could be all the members are people that you don't really see in the game, or they're people who are, just wandering around, because there are plenty. But let me get back to what's going on here. First, we talked to Selmers earlier, who is a wonderful character. You get to listen, or get to know very little about her, but she's got opinions, she's got ideas, and that kind of makes for a really cool character. One that doesn't, pertain much to the plot, but you're invested in her. And next is Mr. Chazikov, who is one of May's old teachers, but he opens up a small mini-game, and he also tends to build a lot of the lore of the game. Not the most normal type lore stuff that you would think would be directly affecting people, but rather he talks a lot about the mythology of this world. And one second. And by talking about the mythology, he really fleshes out the culture that these people live in without, doing it through exposition. These people have, folk tales, they have religions, they've got all that kind of stuff. But, it's not just explicitly saying, oh yes, we believed in this, or we, once heard stories about that. It's just, here are the constellations, and we've got stories connected to them, just like we do in our world. But while we don't necessarily actively view them as stuff that influences us, they do. Here's another character that shows up a whole lot, Daniel, who is desperately trying to look for a job, and I can totally relate to that guy. Because he keeps on jumping between jobs and just can't find anything. And this is the first point that we get to hear about Casey Hartley, who is someone who, obviously, and you've watched or played through this, what's his deal, but it's sort of like the underground mystery over the whole thing is what happened to Casey. Even though it's really never brought up until the very end, so it's sort of just that seeds of doubt. And yeah, I love listening to the people in front of the call center complaining, because the wolf woman, I can totally understand her never feeling particularly great at a job. And I don't think I would ever do too well at a call center. I mean, maybe I could, but it's kind of one of those things where we're ran right by Dr. Hank's place, and Laurie Em shows up at this point, who, I've noticed she doesn't show up in a lot of the fan art or stuff like that, but totally like Laurie Em. I think it's because she has a undiagnosed anxiety disorder, because you can certainly tell. And while hers is a lot more pronounced than mine, I totally get how she feels when she's, going through an anxiety attack, which she goes through kind of several at times. So, poor Laurie. Yeah, I don't know, the towns where I grew up, there weren't really all that much statues. I personally grew up out west. I've only recently come to the New England area, so I'm not kind of used to that sort of thing. I think out west, there's very little outside because no one wants to stay outside. We put all of our statues inside. But yeah, I like the sort of the architecture, and everything kind of looks nice and very lived in. Another group of people we get to find out, which are the Smelters fans, who I'm going to say a lot of people in this thing are interesting, so get used to it, but I like the fact that it kind of shows how emotionally stunted the baby boomer generation is. They never actually talk about their feelings, which kind of drives them insane. Another little thing I love about the game is how May interacts with the teens here, and there's a few others, and with adults. Every time she's with teenagers, she's usually doing her best to say, "Oh no, I just graduated from college. I'm with you guys." And they're like, "Well, no, you're not." And when May's surrounded by adults, they all call her a kid, which she says, "Well, legally I'm not." So she's kind of existing in a second sort of puberty, where she's trying to go between, a child and adult, but this time more socially than biologically. So you kind of get to see a lot of her frustrations of self-identity in that case. And I guess it's because, most people feel that during this point of transition they'd just be at college or whatever, but May's no longer in college, and while it's where she quote unquote should be, it's not where she is. We'll admit also, since moving out to the New England area, repurposed railroad cars. Didn't really see them that much out west. I mean, maybe it was just my area didn't have them, but around here they're pretty common. And Gregory Lee. I like Greg. I think he and May have an incredible, kind of rapport with each other. They're able to kind of bounce off each other, and typically when I play the game, if it's my choice, I will almost always do a Greg run, because I think they do well for each other. Whenever I do runs with B, I typically feel a little bad, because I feel that May is kind of holding B back, where with Greg, I think she's letting him blow off some steam. I wouldn't say a constructive manner, but in a less than destructive manner. And Greg rules, okay? And the first time we get to meet Angus, who is awesome, and definitely a character who I'm probably going to be talking about a whole bunch more, but he is, of course, Greg's boyfriend, which it's nice to have sort of LGBTQ plus characters who are represented, but they aren't token. Because, I mean, they are together, and they're pretty much one of the most, as far as like, how characters are, they seem to be the best representation of, a relationship. And the first of these, guitar mini games, which, as you can see by my playing, I'm not particularly good at it. I suppose if I practiced more, I'd be a lot better, but it's not what, it's not a genre I'm super huge in. I know I've heard a lot of people say, like, I don't know if I can actually beat this part, and I keep telling them, you do not have to beat this part. You could literally set your controller down and let the game make you completely and totally lose, and nothing changes in the game. In fact, you gain an achievement for doing that. But they still are like, no, I don't know if I want to. I say, carpe the freaking diem, man. But what I do like about this song is this is definitely Greg's anthem, wanting to not continue living where he is, which he feels is like, a nowhere place. And he wants to get essentially as far away from here as possible, especially taking along the person he loves, which is Angus. And you can tell it's Greg's anthem because later in the game it actually pops up again during a touching Greg moment, although it's kind of played low and slow, which is kind of nice, so it gives this sort of finality to things. Yeah, the strumming parts are like some of the most difficult ones because you have to hit the key as many times as it shows, no more, no less. I think after I live streamed this game, I heard the renditions by Mondo Pony. If you haven't seen those, I definitely recommend giving them a check out. But yes, May is right. It is definitely hard to do. And I've just now noticed the jack-o'-lanterns with the animal ears on them, and the cat one that's above Greg's head, has triangle eyes and triangle ears, whereas the bear one has rounded eyes. This is a really good little touch. Also, at this point, I do something that I try to always do, which is to feed Angus, because if you don't put a slice of pizza in front of him, he'll never get a second slice, which to me, I feel that hurts me. I don't want to see him just sort of like give up. It's like, no, he's got to get that second slice of pizza. So, it's definitely a little thing that, you want to do because you want to feel good. And the game's kind of pointless in all other ways, so just do stuff that makes you feel like you're doing something better. I don't know. I'm just talking out of my butt at this point. Okay, so I think this specific track is called Casey's Gone, which I love how it starts, because it starts with a, like, ominous, long-held note, like, oh god, this is, like, really, really terrible, but then it kind of moves towards a lilting sort of fond remembrance. So you're like, oh, okay, he just left. Everything's okay. But, as we find out at the end of the game, everything is not okay. Everything is very not okay. And that's how the game goes. Yeah, the music in this game is absolutely phenomenal. Alex Holka is extremely good with it. Yeah, each time you see me play, and I've yet to actually do this, but you get an achievement for poking the cockroach that is running around here. But yeah, there's no point in it. Speaking of no points, yeah, you can uncover a tattoo, and since you've played or seen the Let's Play of this, you realize, wait a minute, that tattoo is meaningless. It is. It is a complete red herring that has nothing to do with the cult or anything else. It's just a tattoo of a diamond. Which, considering most of these people are covered in fur, and that looks like to be a fur-covered limb, well, we'll avoid trying to overthink things here. But yeah, I suppose this is another reason why I'm not huge in putting May and B together, is because she does give B a lot of emotional distress, which is not good. Not good at all. And B deserves better. But yes, the pizza scale, which is very important. But yeah, then we also finally have May Borowski's dad, Stan Borowski, who seems to be one of those people who used to be a union worker and now unfortunately is working in a world where unions aren't quite around all that much, and thus he's getting tired. But he's still funny, though. And yeah, I'll admit my family were very much anti-union, so I don't really have much of a history with that. But I certainly do agree with the plight of Stan Borowski. And yeah, this game is political. This game is very much political, and I can understand if people don't agree with it, but yeah. Also, yeah, I checked up on the boxes, which I didn't show the fact that I looked at them earlier. That pretty much is just May saying that, oh, there's boxes full in the crawl space. But anyway, we will call this the end for day 2 of me rambling about Night in the Woods. Have a good one.